Hi, welcome to today's Second Act Living podcast, a place where people in the second act of their life can come together to talk and laugh, pray, admonish about everything that this stage of life has to throw at you. So please help me welcome today's guest, Emily Eichstadt. Emily is a professional certified coach with over 8 years of experience coaching leaders and executives to grow in self-awareness, build stronger relationships, and achieve greater fulfillment. As a wife and mom, Emily recognizes that the skills she uses in coaching, like active listening, asking powerful questions, and fostering independence, are not only effective, but crucial for parenting young adults. That is for sure. She is passionate about equipping middle-aged women to navigate the unique challenges of this season of life, where kids are no longer fully dependent, but not yet entirely independent. Emily inspires parents to coach their children into adulthood with confidence, compassion, and purpose. And I have had the privilege of meeting and getting to know Emily through PCCI, the Professional Christian Coaching Institute that I am currently getting life coach training in. She did a small group, like a 6-week small group last term on like how to start a business. So it was super helpful. And Emily is probably one of the kindest, most generous people I've ever met, and anyone that you'll ever meet. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
It is a joy to be here and to be invited. So thank you, Anne-Marie.
Yeah. So what we usually do before we jump in is we'll start with some rapid fire questions. Okay. You ready?
Okay. Okay. I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
Okay. When going on a date with your hubby, do you choose a romantic candlelit dinner or Netflix and pizza?
Can I do a third choice?
Yes, absolutely.
To go to breakfast.
Oh.
And I would say that's the majority of our dates. And I was joking that I'm like, I never shower or put makeup on for any of our dates. But it's wonderful to sip coffee and just chat. I adore those type of dates.
That's awesome. And, that's true love when, no shower, no hair, and you still adore each other's time, right?
Yes.
When going on a trip, do you pack your whole closet or travel light?
More light. Yeah. Light. Yeah.
I'm working on that. It's a work in progress.
If I can just do a carry-on, that is what we want to do.
Yeah, that would make my husband very happy. Where are you finding your joy in midlife?
My joy, I would say I've slowed down and have actually been more present in my life, in the moment. I'm finding my joy in the moment with whomever I'm with. And every day, the first thing I do in the morning is a gratitude journal. So I think back, okay, what was yesterday? What, the past 24 hours, what happened? What did I super appreciate? That's where I'm finding my joy is just, it's now.
That's awesome. I think that's what we all strive for, right? Like to not live in the past and not to live in the future, but to live in the present, right?
Yes, it's taken me 50 years to get there, but I'm working on it. I'm feeling it.
We're all a work in progress for as long as we're on this earth, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
What has been your favorite vacation?
Oh, Chad and I went to Cancun, Mexico to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary a couple years ago. And it was the first time at an all-inclusive and just the two of us. And because I'm kind of either in mom mode or wife mode, and it's really hard for me to let go if it's a family vacation. So that was like the first trip the two of us had taken together in I don't know how long. It was fantastic.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah.
What is one new skill or hobby you have always wanted to learn?
I love creative lettering. Like when I receive an envelope in the mail from somebody and it has my name written beautifully, there is just something about that makes me feel so special. So that's a skill that I've been learning for trying to work on for 7 years, is this creative writing, so that I want it to naturally come from my hand, but I really concentrate. So I'm definitely still in the learning process, but that's something I would love to just be natural.
That's beautiful. That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that, but you're right. Every time I get something that has like calligraphy or something like that, you feel special. That's cool.
And in the meanwhile, I usually just do it on the computer, send it through my printer, so the envelope still looks gorgeous. It's just not my writing, but I chose the font, and it's special.
Yeah. What is one way you stay connected with your kids?
Oh, I have one living at home and one in college. In the one in college, we FaceTime every week. You know, we say Sundays, but a lot of times we'll have little text or FaceTimes in the middle. She'll always text me and say, "What doing?" That means she wants to connect with me, and if I'm available, I'm all for it.
That's cute.
And I would say, you know, just texting and just like anytime I'm thinking. Just yesterday, I saw like a meme online, and I'm like, this reminds me of my kids. It was just something, a message I want them to know. If they didn't already know that, I want to reinforce that they are enough as they are right now. They don't have to do anything to earn my love or anything. So I just sent that to the both of them yesterday, and they both just hearted it and said, "Thanks, Mom."
Oh, I love that.
I like to just connect.
What is your go-to stress reliever?
Go-to stress reliever? I don't know, like quiet. Like I like quiet. So maybe just going to my bedroom if I'm feeling just like there's a lot of noise or there's a lot of thoughts. I would say I need to get in a place where it's just quiet. And if I really have a lot going on up there, a journal and just like getting all those thoughts on paper. But so that's where I am just like, I need to kind of settle myself.
Yeah. What is one piece of advice you would give your 20-something self?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say just try.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Err on the side of trying rather than being cautious and waiting. Just give it a try.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that, right? Yeah. And the last one, this one's kind of silly. What's worse, hot flashes or forgetting why you walked into a room?
You know, when I think I'm over my hot flashes now, but those were horrendous. So I would say that. I would say the hot flashes, just like constantly off on, off on, off on.
Yeah, for sure. And you live someplace kind of chilly, right? Or at least.
Yes. Yeah. I live in Wisconsin. It's -21 today. Schools are closed in my area.
-21. My goodness. Wow.
That's regular. And like with wind chill, it's probably even more. So it's just dangerous to be out and about.
Woo, that's chilly.
It is.
So today's topic is about coaching your kids to adulthood. And I just, when I saw your post on Facebook that you have done a talk like this with your husband, I just completely resonated with it. We are in the midst of launching our kids to adulthood and things like that. And I just felt it would be so helpful for our listeners to kind of glean from your wisdom, right? But before we kind of dive into that, I think if you wouldn't mind, kind of explain what coaching is, just in general terms for our listeners, if they're not really familiar with how the coaching process works.
Yeah, coaching is really coming alongside somebody and asking questions and listening and hearing their take on it. So it's not telling, it's not controlling or anything, but it's more just like asking questions and pulling out what's already inside of them. So it's really trusting my clients that they can handle their problems or issues, that they can come up with the right responses. And the same goes with our kids, is respecting them enough, honoring them enough to take a step back and ask them, what do you think? Instead of, you got to do this, this, this. I know what's best. Listen to me. You're not able to make a good decision or choice. That's what it's kind of communicating when we're telling them what to do, in my opinion.
Right. No, and so I feel like, in my experience, right, I can't speak for every mother. In my experience, this transition has been maybe the hardest for me. You know, I've said in the past, I was a very active parent. So, so I had a hand in all the things, right? And part of that is out of love. Part of that is out of control. I can be self-aware enough. So, but releasing that has been one of the most challenging for me because it's, it's something completely different. And B, it's, what's appropriate, right? I'm still their mom. So it's delving into the deep of what is appropriate, what's not, right? So in thinking about that, how does coaching young adults not differ, but what does that look like? How does that play out opposed to like coaching a different demographic?
Right. I don't know. I think, people are people, and I think it's good to honor people with asking their opinion and what they think. So like even coaching young adults, when my kids were in high school, Mom, can I stay out until blah, blah, blah? What do you think? Like, what do you think is a good hour, to be out on? And just like really help, like truly, I want to know what they think. If they think 4 a.m. is reasonable, I want to know that. Or if they think 1 sounds good, where I'm thinking 10:30, how about 11? But it's like I kind of want to know like where we're starting from and like how we can meet in the middle there. So again, I just I don't ever want to overpower and overtake, and because I'm older and I'm the mom, I know what's best. Trust me, what you have to say isn't as important as what I have to say, and I just never want to come across as that. And so that, I don't know if I didn't do it perfectly, clearly, but that was always my aim, is what do you think? And just always asking, because I think a lot of times when we don't have to engage our brain, you just kind of check out. But like when we're asked a question, that brain stays stimulated and it kind of communicates what I think matters.
That's so good. So what age did you start having those kind of coaching conversations?
That is a great question. So me going into the coaching field came at, I think, the perfect time. So my kids were 11 and 13. So I mean, they were just entering into the teens, and that's a really weird stage. Everything changes. They're not your cute little kids anymore that are just like so happy all the time. All of a sudden, the hormones are coming in and they're crying, and they don't know why they're crying, and I don't know why they're crying. And like it's something else. I wasn't expecting that until like high school, but I mean, it hit like that junior high type time. And so anyway, my coach training coincided beautifully for the season that my kids were in. So it really helped me take the coach approach with them, because those were the skills that I was learning. And so I was able to practice on them in real time as I'm learning these coaching skills. And one thing I learned is that I think they say kids, by the time they're about 7, they already know how their parents feel about things. So we don't have to keep pounding into them what we think and what we think is right and what, the do's and the don'ts and stuff. By the time they're 7, they have a good idea of what we're probably going to think about something. So that is when we want to, again, engage their brain and their thought process. And what do you think? What sounds reasonable to you? What, instead of this is the way it's going to be. So
7, I would not have thought that young. Yeah, that's, how you have these conversations and then you think back on your own parenting and you're like, oh, wow, I did not do that.
I know. I only learned that later, so I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. How has your prayer life been a part of coaching your kids?
Oh my goodness. Can we do anything apart from Christ?
Right.
Like that is where the strength comes from. And sometimes, I'll admit I had to get to the end of my rope before I'm like, I got to pray about this. As opposed to now I really try to have the prayer be the part of the process, not the last resort, and that sounds terrible saying that, but it's when things are so hard that it's like my hands are tied. All I can do is pray. And so I was recently in a Bible study that reminded me that we can pray for wisdom. We
Mm.
can pray for wisdom. And that is things that are so much smarter than what I can think of. But,
Mhm.
that comes from God. And since praying for wisdom, I have noticed like a shift I had a couple of different issues or situations I was in, and I was feeling really stuck and kind of like feeling like a lose-lose situation. And then I prayed for wisdom, and God truly just made a way, like a beautiful path through one of these things I was navigating. And I'm like, you kind of kick yourself like, shoot, why haven't I been doing that all along? But, prayer and part of prayer, I think, is truly releasing our children, knowing
Oh,
that I am not in control and God loves them even more than I do. So in prayer, truly just continuing to surrender them over and over and over again, and with the hands open, like, Lord, they
mm.
are yours. I trust you with them. It's scary, but it doesn't do us any good to just keep that tight grip. It doesn't do any good. It just messes with our peace. And I am a big fan of peace.
Yeah. And it messes with the relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Mm-hmm.
attest to that. It absolutely messes with the relationship. So, and in saying what I said about this has been one of the harder transitions for me in parenting. I was talking to another mom the other day about kind of this same topic, and even the same posture I had of like, okay, Lord, right? Like, help me to believe that you are truly sovereign, and help me to believe that you are good
Mm-hmm.
and that you love my kids more than I do, right? It's the I believe, help my unbelief dichotomy. So, in talking to this mom, it's so much easier to have that posture of surrender with your kids when your kids are doing well,
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
right? When they're making good choices consistently, when they're growing and maturing and, following not the path necessarily that you want for them, but the path that God wants for them, right? You can sit back and be like, yes, Lord, I believe you. It's when your kids aren't doing well and they're not making good choices consistently and you don't see fruit and you don't see where the Lord is working in their life, that is where it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
believe this is true no matter what, and to believe that God is good even if,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's
Mm-hmm.
where it's hard. And that's where I feel consistent reminders of how to do this with other moms is so critical. Because that's what we're called to do. We're called to work ourselves out of a job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Exactly.
yeah. Um, and I've said before, women need women, moms need moms, parents need parents. They need to know they're not in isolation. They need to know that they're not the only ones dealing with X, Y, and Z or whatever the case may be. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's real. Like life's messy, and
It is.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
do you have Bible verses that you revisit frequently and kind of to help you encourage you?
Yeah, I have a few favorites. And one of them I just, always come back to over and over again. And it's not necessarily parenting, but it just feels, it's my perspective on like everything is spiritual, I feel. So,
Yeah.
like John 10:10, Jesus is talking that the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. Because that's true. Like every day there is a spiritual attack that wants to steal our peace and our joy. But then Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. That's why he's come. And I receive that with every fiber of my being. I want to have that life to the full, a richness, just like of plenty and of just, I want to say like saturation, like I don't want to be dry and weary and thirsty and barely making, like Jesus come that we could have life and have it to the full. And that to me is just like so just enriched and saturated and overflowing. That when somebody bumps into me, I want them to get a little bit of, water spilled on them
Yeah.
for refreshment
Yeah.
and things. So like that one, I always come. So like whenever trouble happens, it's like, of course it is, because the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That's,
Yeah.
that's what he's all about. Expect it. Don't be surprised when
Yeah.
that happens. But then having that joy knowing, but Jesus came and he has more for us. He has
Yeah.
overcome. He
Yeah.
wins. And I hold on to that hope. And that's the message of hope and encouragement that I believe in and that I want to share with others who are feeling discouraged. And yeah, hard times come, absolutely. But we don't have to lose our hope in the midst of it, even though we don't know how it's going to end. And yeah, like my kids don't make the decision that I would like to 100% of the time. But you know what I like? That they share with me that
Mm.
they're working on it and this is where they're at. Because I've told them from the beginning, I want to know the real you, even if you think that I might not approve or that I wouldn't be that. I don't want a fake relationship where you act a certain way for me, but truly you're a different person away from me. I want to know the real you. And so I'm asking for that truth. And so I don't want them to sugarcoat things with me. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but at least I've expressed that I
Sure.
really want to know you, not the version of you that you think I want.
That's beautiful. And that speaks to probably what everyone's deep desire is, if they can articulate it or not, is to be truly known and truly loved.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so in our pre-interview, you kind of talked about the three big concepts in coaching your kids to adulthood. Um, can you talk about that? Tell me what that looks like.
Yeah, these are three concepts that honestly I think every parent should have. I hate the word should, so that's why I hesitate before I say should. I don't like that word at all, but every parent, every person should have in their toolbox. So this is my coaching. It's not a formula, but these are three things. Listening is of vital importance. If you can only work on one skill for the rest of your life, I would say have it be listening. That you're truly tuned into another person. You are listening how it's affecting them, how it's impacting them, whatever that they're sharing with you. Just listen how it's impacting them, because it's very easy and very common for us to relate it to something that we can relate to and like, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time, blah, blah. And we almost want to interrupt and,
Yeah.
So listening is of key importance. And we can go a little bit deeper into that too. And then asking questions. Again, coaches, we listen, we ask questions, open-ended, because we're truly, like I said, trying to pull out whatever is already inside the person we're speaking with. And we just want them to become more and more aware of how they feel about the situation and what they feel their options are and things like that. And then the third thing that I highly recommend that a lot of people have a hard time with, and again, I learned this in coaching, and I'm just like, that feels really uncomfortable and almost weak, but it is not weak.
Oh,
And
that's
that third tip that I have is before you give advice, because it's like we have an opinion about everything, and especially as
sure.
parents, we know what our parent or what our kids should do or what a better course of action is. But if they don't want to know what we have to say, it's going to fall on deaf ears anyway. So here's the $1 million question: is asking permission before you give advice or before you make a suggestion. Asking permission. And that has gone a long way with my kids. When I have something that I'm burning to share with them, tell them, direct them, control them, can I share with you what I think about that? Or can I share with you something that worked for me? Or something like asking permission before you say, you have to, you know what you got to do, and that works with like our female friends too. Because sometimes friends just want to talk and complain or vent or whatever. Yeah. And then I usually ask permission, like, can I share something with you that's worked for me? And 99% of the time they say yes, but that does something to us. I think it's very honoring to a person when we ask them if we can share something with them instead of just shooting it at them, and whether they want it or not. And anytime anyone's asked me, I'm almost like, yes, please tell me. And it almost makes you all the more receptive and in a place where it's like, you're going to really hold on to this because I've agreed to this. I've asked for this. Yes, give it to me. So that's been helpful.
So, wow. Yeah. Asking permission has been, well, I'm just going to say it. I'm too mouthy sometimes. So it has been eye-opening for me how I have not bulldozed, but not realized how critical it is to ask for permission, to not lead the conversation, to not insert myself when I'm not wanted, even if I feel it would be to their benefit. That has been a hard learning curve for me.
That's an enormous amount of self-control.
Yeah.
Not insert yourself, to not, and with the best of intentions, that's why we want, to share this information. But again, if somebody is not ready to hear it, it's not going to do them any good. And it doesn't help the relationship.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So in listening, can you kind of unpack what that looks like, what active listening looks like?
And so when my husband or my kids or a friend, when they're speaking to me, like I really do try to tune in to them and try to minimize any distractions in my area. So if I'm, writing an email, I will say, can you give me 30 seconds and then you can have my undivided attention? Or if I'm not in the middle of something, I can just kind of shut my computer down a little bit because I physically need to, I tell myself, stop, look, and listen. Stop what you're doing. Look at the person you're communicating with and listen. And so that's just a reminder, because we think we can do two things at once, and we really, really can't multitask when it comes to something that we need to be engaged in with our brain. And so with listening, stop, look, and listen, see how it's, impacting the person, like what they're sharing, and don't interrupt. That's huge. And it's so easy to, I know. That's just like, like we want to insert ourselves, but just like zip our lips, sit back, listen. And that concept of holding space. As coaches, we learn that in our training. We're just going to hold space for the person who's speaking. I just remember using that term, and my husband's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And because it came so common and, with among coaches, like, oh yeah, I'll hold space. Take as much time as you need. I'm just going to hold the space for you.
Yeah.
And Jeff's like, that, what? But he's learned that it's so honoring. And I'll even shoot him a look because he likes to, as coaches, we just have to sit back.
Yeah.
And just listen. That's not normal. And so regular people, like, it's more of a back, forth. And it's like, I'll shoot him a look, just like, let her finish speaking. Let her finish her thought, because all of us need time for that stuff to come out. And when we're cut off, we are never going to get to that place. And so I definitely err on the side of letting somebody talk. And I don't know if anyone's ever said, well, Emily, that's enough listening. Now, I'll listen and you talk. Like, we will never exhaust ourselves, I think, as long as there's a listening ear. And I love to give that gift of listening. It's so close to love. I think listening is loving that other person, again, and just being for them and with them the entire time.
There's something very special, like you said, about holding space, which is not a new concept for me, but it, the way that it's presented in coaching, it has been new of what that looks like, of what holding space for someone looks like. But it is truly a sacred space, I think, that you set up for whoever you're talking to. Is you're fully present. They're the most important person in your life right now, and that you're fully engaged. And that it's a beautiful thing. Who doesn't want to feel valued?
Exactly.
Right? You're honoring, like you said, you're honoring someone by just your attention, right?
Yep.
we're so pulled in so many different directions. Um, it's a beautiful thing to put that aside and give someone your full attention. Yeah.
It is, and it's not easy. It is not easy.
No.
It is self-management. I remember when I first started coaching and I would invite somebody to coffee just to kind of practice my listening. After an hour coffee date with a friend, I came home and I would have to like put my head under a blanket and like sleep because it is difficult. Like it
Yes.
takes a lot out of you. Like that's exhausting brain work. So listening is a skill. And I don't know that I'm a naturally gifted listener. People have said that I'm a good listener, but I'm like, oh, I've got a long way to go. And again, just like building on that skill every year, trying to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about asking questions? What does asking open-ended questions look like for your kids?
Yes, it's so important to, okay, now that you've listened to what they said, and then ask that open-ended question. Because like maybe in my head, I'm thinking they should do certain things, like something like, so are you going to tell them to, like that's a question, but that's
Yeah.
a telling question. And instead, like an open-ended question was like, well, what are you going to do about that? Or what are you thinking? It's your next step with that. Or even if it's more, it's just still exploratory. If they're just talking about something that happened in their friend group, what did you think about that?
Mm.
Again, just helping them become more aware of how they feel about the situation, and then moving them in. So now what? Instead of me saying, I don't ever want you hanging out with her again. Oh my gosh, that is not a way someone treats a friend. You know what I mean? Again,
Totally.
management, self-control is just like, what did you think about that? What were you feeling when she was saying that? It's again just honoring them and trusting that they're going to come to the conclusion themselves, because statistics show like that's what's going to stick is when they can make the connection themselves, and it's their idea, not our idea, telling them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in the midst of those open-ended questions, do your husband kids ever do pushback like stop coaching me, mom? Like
Yep. And so, but honestly, like when Sid, my oldest, was in high school, I think she was a junior, and she was really having a trouble, like trying to come up with a decision for something. And I just kept asking her questions. And she's like, Mom, stop coaching me. Just tell me what to do. Like what teenager says, just tell me what to do? But I thought that was pretty cool that I clearly was giving her even more freedom than what she cared to have.
yeah.
She's like, just give me the answer.
Yeah.
Tell me what.
That's my
So I
youngest.
definitely want to, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's my youngest for sure. My daughter would be like, stop coaching me and just tell me what you want me to do. Where my son will never in a million years will those words ever come out of his mouth of just tell me what to do. Never, ever, ever. He's 21 and
Yep.
I mean, this short of glory, like never will. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I purposely, like I use coaching techniques just with life because I'm a coach and that just comes out of me. And if somebody doesn't like it, they can tell me like, stop it. I'm sorry I'm being so honoring to you, and I will talk more then. I'll stop listening so much. Sorry, that was so rude.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So asking permission.
Yeah.
When do you feel, or I guess maybe I'm leading question, is that always appropriate to ask permission before you give advice?
Mm-hmm. Is that all? I don't know. Like those
Yeah.
always the numbers are tricky, but I would say I personally want to err on the side of asking permission and honoring the person I'm speaking with, because sometimes I do have a really strong idea of something that I think would help them or that they should do, or and so when those instances come, and even with my clients when I'm coaching them, if it's like, if this idea, like it won't go away, like sometimes you get an idea and you just let it flow and then it just leaves as quickly as it came and you're just engaged, continue, in the coaching session. But when that, like, it's not going away, that's when I'll ask a client, like, can I share something with you? Or can I share something that's worked for me? I have this idea that's coming to in my head. Can I share that with you? I feel like they appreciate it. Like usually at the end of the coaching session, when I'm just like, what are you taking away from today? What was helpful? Almost every time it'll be that thing that I shared with them that I like fought myself on, like, Emily, zip it, not, it's not your place. But almost every time they're like, thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear. And so is it always appropriate to ask permission? I mean, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
One of my daughters was recently had an issue with one of her friends that I was just like kind of appalled about.
Mm.
And I just assumed this friendship was just like going to end because
Sure.
I wouldn't tolerate that in my life, like that type of a thing. But I'm not intertwined with this friend. I'm not emotionally, invested. I haven't invested as much time as she has in it. So like when I heard the situation, it was kind of like, like they don't get a place in your life anymore if they treated you like that. And so that's been one of the hardest, most difficult things for me recently, is watching my daughter make a decision different than how I would, because again, I'm pretty black and white and removed emotionally. I have nothing to lose from this relationship. She does. She's invested. And so that is me putting, the what is that, money where my mouth is, or the rubber meets the road, is like, Emily, like, does this still apply? When things are difficult and when they're choosing a different way than I would. And I have to trust that it is her life. It is her life and her decisions, and she gets to live with them. And we learn our best lessons a lot of times through pain and heartache. And that's what sticks. And so, yes, I'd like to save her from that, but in the end, it is her life. She has more information on this scenario than I do. And I honor her and respect her enough to just trust that she is wise enough to make her own decisions. And if and when she comes to the same realization that I did, that she would be able to come to me, and it would not be met with, and I told you so, or it's about time. It's like, no. And we've discussed it a lot. I'm just like, I don't want anything to come between my relationship with her. So whether she chooses to stay with this friend or leave the friend, it is not going to affect my relationship with her. I love you. I am always here for you. And there is nothing you can do that would make me want to separate myself from you. So just know that I love you unconditionally. And that is of the utmost importance for me, for my daughters, for me to communicate with them. Even if I'm not pleased with the decision they made, that does not affect our relationship. I love you. This is always home. I always want to be in a relationship with you, regardless if you feel like I approve of your decisions or not. And again, me trusting them over to God. They have the Holy Spirit. They can pray. They will be communicated to. It doesn't have to go through mom. And so I just need to release them and trust that God's working on their hearts, just like he worked on my heart. So,
yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And who wouldn't want to have a relationship as a daughter? Who wouldn't want to have that kind of relationship with their mother, right? That's what we all long to have, is that sweet connection and love. Yeah, that's beautiful.
That reminds me, Riley was FaceTiming my husband today, like this morning, and I'm like, oh, by the way, Riley, I'm going on a podcast today about coaching your kids into adulthood. Is there anything that you want me to share, when I'm on that? And I'm like, is there something that like you especially appreciated about this? Because I'm like, here I'm going on as the expert of coaching your kids into adulthood. Wouldn't it be ironic if my kids were like, you were the worst? But anyway, what Riley shared with me is she really appreciated the fact that Chad and I both, would give her space to, if she had to communicate something to us or like share something and we wanted information, like, hey, what's going on with this or whatever, that we gave her enough time and space for her to come to us and tell us when she was ready, instead of like, hey, I heard, you broke up with your boyfriend. What's going on? Or something like that, like back in high school or whatever. Like she would just freeze up, like, not your business. Stop with the interrogation. Like she was very resistant. And so I learned that I need to step back. And when she's ready, it'll happen. I'm not going to push. I'm not going to force. And so like initially, like I was so like hyper, like, tell me. And I've learned through coaching, just like when the time is right, she will come, and I'm going to give her that space. And she said she really appreciated that we both just kind of gave her that space so that when she was ready, she could come. And so that meant a lot to me. I'm like, I'm glad. I'm glad, because it kills me because I want to know now. Isn't that
how I want to know now? Yeah, but that is a testament to, that's just not the last few years or however old she is of entering adulthood. That is a beautiful laying foundation groundwork of consistent parenting all throughout her life. That's beautiful. And that's beautiful that she can recognize that. I feel like sometimes kids don't realize it until much later, like, oh, that's what they were doing, or that's why they did it, or things like that. So that's actually super encouraging for you as a mom, right? We all need to be encouraged. And when the encouragement comes from our own kids, that's just like the biggest blessing ever. So
yeah, it almost reminds me like of an analogy of like a cat. And it's like, oh, it's such a cute cat. It's like a stray cat outside, and you're just like chasing it and wanting it. And the more you chase it, the more it runs away. Where at the same time, like if you were just to sit down and just be peaceful and just kind of call it, and, and just be non-threatening, it'll eventually, most likely, like come and trust you enough and maybe sit a little bit closer to you. And that's kind of what I feel like Riley was, like if we don't chase, I'm not going to chase you, but I'm going to be sitting right here. And when you're ready, go ahead and sit, at the other end of the couch, if that's comfortable for you, and just kind of slowly, work your way a little closer until you're really comfortable to be able to share what you want to share. So.
Yeah. And thinking about that, the only possible way to do this is through Jesus, through prayer, through the Holy Spirit. That calls back to the only way we can do that well is if we're consistently in prayer and allowing the Spirit to work and move through us, because it's not natural. It's not easy. Yeah.
And coming back to praying for wisdom again. Give me wisdom. Give me wisdom. I know what I want to do, but I want wisdom.
Yeah.
And even for the words to say or not to say. Is it the right time to communicate? Is it the right time to be quiet?
Yeah.
That can go through prayer too. I don't want to do anything in my own strength.
Because every time I try and do, it just never goes well.
Yeah.
It never goes well.
Yeah. And I think just that sort of humility too, I think is important too.
That's good.
To be able to ask for forgiveness if needed. I never need to offend anyone, but if I have, please forgive me. That's not what I intended. Instead of a defensive stance, it's like, this is my kid's experience. And if they felt like I was too this or not enough that, I want to own that. And I'm sorry that wasn't what you needed at that time.
Yeah. I've said before, I have never practiced my need to ask for forgiveness more than through parenting, for being a mom. It's
humbling.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling. Well, Emily, thank you so much for imparting your wisdom and kindness and generosity. So helpful. And so helpful, those three big concepts, so helpful in any relationship that we are involved in. How much more rich a relationship could be if we actively practice these things, right?
Absolutely. These are good life skills.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to use you as a coach or get a hold of you or talk to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah. Well, I do have a website, emilylifecoach.com. So I would say that's probably the best way. There's even a little tab on there that said, let's chat. So like if you wanted to have a conversation, a 30-minute conversation, schedule something on my books. And I love to talk about everything, and to encourage. I feel like God has given me the gift of encouragement, and I love to meet with people, hear what's on their heart, pray with them if they want, whatever that is. I just,
Awesome.
yeah, I
Awesome.
love my,
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
yeah, it was a joy. So thank you for inviting me.
Good. All right. Thank you.
All right.